It is Friday afternoon, 4 o'clock. Your boss calls a retrospective meeting. He sits down, lets out a sigh, and says, "Let's reflect on this together. What could we have done differently?" In that moment, your chest actually loosens a little. He is not yelling. He wants to debrief with the team. But notice this. From that moment on, you're already writing his apology for him. He made the decision, he set the deadline, he promised the client. But when this meeting ends, the post-mortem document goes out Monday morning. The person writing, "I should have caught this earlier," it won't be him. Today, we're breaking down the most polite and most invisible form of blame shifting. In the American workplace, it is called apology hijacking. Let me start with the research. Harvard Business School professor Amy Edmondson coined a term, psychological safety, the idea that everyone on a team should feel safe admitting mistakes. A good thing in theory. But in her book, The Fearless Organization, Edmondson issued a specific warning. Many companies don't actually adopt psychological safety. They adopt collective reflection as a tool for laundering responsibility. Charm surveys on workplace accountability show a similar pattern. A majority of mid-level employees report being led in post-mortem or retro meetings to take on responsibility that wasn't theirs. Why does this happen? Because responsibility is never distributed evenly, but reflection can be, now I'm going to break down how the sentence, "Let's reflect on this together," through 5 stages, turns someone else's mistake into a written confession sitting in your desk drawer. If you start to feel it sounds familiar by stage 3, stop and think about it. That is not a coincidence. Stage 1, the mistake gets anonymized. The first sentence, mistakes were made, or things didn't go as planned, or something fell through the cracks. Notice the grammar here. Every one of these sentences is in passive voice. There is no subject. No one did anything wrong. Things just happened. Linguist George Lakoff has a name for this kind of phrasing. He calls it agent erasure, the verbal trick of removing the actor from the action. The first move in apology hijacking is always this: strip the original mistake of its owner. Before there is any subject, there is no one to hold accountable. And once the room collectively accepts that things just happened, the next step becomes possible, distributing the responsibility to whoever's available, starting with you. Stage 2, the responsibility gets pluralized. The second sentence, "Let's reflect on this together," or "I think there is something we can all learn from this." Pay close attention to that pronoun, we. Yesterday, the decision was, "I'll handle it." The instruction was, "Do it this way." The deadline was, "Get it done by Friday." All singular pronouns, all his. But the moment things go wrong, the pronoun changes overnight. I becomes we. My call becomes our process. This is what political scientists call diffusion of responsibility, originally a term from bystander effect research. The more people present at an emergency, the less likely any individual is to act, because everyone assumes someone else will handle it. Apology hijacking weaponizes this mechanism in reverse. The more people pulled into the reflection, the less responsibility falls on the one who caused it. We isn't inclusion, it is dilution. Stage 3, the reframe gets installed. The third sentence, "What could you have done differently?" This is where the trap really springs. On the surface, it is an open-ended question, a coaching prompt. But notice what it does. It locks you into the role of the person who needs to grow. While he stays in the role of the person asking the question, coaches don't take blame. Coaches assign reflection. Once you start answering, "What could I have done differently?" you've already accepted the implicit premise that the issue is in your performance. Cognitive psychologist Daniel Kahneman calls this framing effect. The structure of a question silently pre-decides the answer. The question isn't, "Did I, your manager, screw this up?" The question is, Where did you fall short? And as long as you start answering, you've already lost. Stage 4, the apology gets transferred. The fourth sentence, I appreciate you taking ownership of this. Or, thank you for being so accountable. This is the most surreal moment of the entire mechanism. You haven't actually said you were wrong, but he is already thanking you for it. Behavioral economist Dan Ariely has done research showing that public praise for a behavior makes you twice as likely to repeat that behavior. Even if you weren't fully convinced you should do it the first time, thank you for being so accountable isn't gratitude, it is installation. He is installing in you the identity of the person who takes ownership. And once that identity is installed, the next time something goes wrong, you won't even need him to ask the question anymore. You'll volunteer for the role yourself. Stage 5, the record gets rewritten. The fifth sentence shows up not in the meeting, but in the document afterward. The post-mortem document, the retro notes, the email to leadership. And in those documents, you'll find sentences like, the team identified gaps in execution and is taking steps to address them. Notice what is missing. No decision maker, no original instruction, no name, just the team and execution gaps. This is what historian Hayden White called narrativization. The process of turning chaotic events into a clean story with chosen heroes and chosen villains. And in this story, the villain is always the same execution. Not the strategist, not the decision maker. Execution doesn't have a face, doesn't have a paycheck, doesn't have a LinkedIn. But execution is also exactly what you do. 2 weeks later, when leadership reviews this document, the face they associate with the failure is yours. At this point, you might ask, are they doing this intentionally? My answer is, in most cases, no, it is not intentional. But the effect is the same. Because apology hijacking isn't the move of one bad manager. It is a survival reflex of the entire managerial class. Managers are evaluated on outcomes, not on the truth of who did what. A failed project with a clean post-mortem is better for their career than a successful project with a messy one. And the cheapest way to produce a clean post-mortem is to find someone in the room willing to say, I should have caught this. That someone is almost always the person with the least power and the most conscience. That someone is almost always you. So you have to understand this, that retro meeting isn't a search for truth. It is a ritual for transferring ownership. Recognizing this mechanism isn't about refusing to ever take responsibility. It is about making sure the responsibility you take is actually yours. 3 signals to check whether you're getting hijacked. First, in retro meetings, do the pronouns shift from I to we? Right at the moment something went wrong. Second, when your boss asks, what could you have done differently? Has he ever asked himself the same question out loud in front of you? Third, in the final post-mortem document, is there any sentence that names a specific decision made by a specific person? If 2 out of 3 apply, you've already been hijacked. The first step to breaking it isn't to refuse all reflection. That just makes you defensive. It is a very simple sentence. The next time he says, what could we have done differently? You say back calmly, before we get to that, can we map out the original decision chain? Who decided what and when? That single sentence reintroduces the actors back into the story. And the moment the actors come back, the hijacking stops working. Next episode, we're breaking down a more hidden mechanism. Your boss says, keep me posted, just sync with me whenever. It sounds like trust. It sounds like openness. It is neither. The tactic is called the transparency trap. If someone you know is also stuck in the stage I described, share this video with them. Drop a comment, tell me which stage started sounding familiar. See you next time.